Dear friends, welcome to another episode of The Spokemaster. In this video, we will talk about yet another Chinese territorial claim, this time over South Korea. Let's start with some history and geography. The area in question is located in what's called the Provisional Measures Zone, established in 2001 through a temporary agreement between China and South Korea to avoid direct conflicts over their overlapping exclusive economic zones. According to the agreement within this zone, only fishing activities are allowed, while a permanent solution for the definitive delimitation of maritime boundaries is being worked on by commissions from both countries. However, recent events show that Beijing is using flexible interpretations of this agreement by installing gigantic structures officially described as fishing support facilities. China is effectively changing the dynamics of the region. These installations, some measuring over 50 meters in height, represent more than just simple infrastructure. They are clear signs of a Chinese strategy of territorial expansion and consolidation in contested waters. To understand the Chinese strategy in the Yellow Sea, it's essential to analyze how Beijing has handled other territorial disputes in the Pacific. The best-known case is that of the South China Sea, where Beijing claims almost the entire territory through the controversial Nine-Dash Line, a claim contested by several countries, including Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, and Brunei, which also have interests in the region. Since 2013, China has been building artificial islands in the South China Sea, equipping them with runways, ports, and military installations, with the Chinese justifying these structures as necessary for civilian purposes. But in practice, they serve only to strengthen China's military presence in the region and challenge free navigation guaranteed by international law. Another major point of tension in the region is Taiwan. Beijing considers the island part of its sovereign territory, despite Taiwan operating as an independent state in practice. Tensions have escalated in recent years, with China conducting military exercises near the island, simulating airstrikes and amphibious invasions, while the United States, on its side, intensifies its support for Taipei, fueling the possibility of conflict. The territorial disputes between China and South Korea are not new. One of the most emblematic points is the dispute over the area of Iota, or Sian, as it is called by the Chinese. Although it lies outside the exclusive economic zones of both countries, South Korea established a marine research center in the area, leading to significant protests from Beijing. Another tension point is the illegal fishing activities by Chinese vessels in South Korean waters, a problem that has generated constant friction, with the South Korean Coast Guard intensifying its operations to curb such practices. These events reveal a pattern of dispute involving not just territorial issues, but also economic and strategic interests, highlighting the complexity of the bilateral relationship. To understand the magnitude of Beijing's recent action, it's important to observe the broader context of Chinese activities throughout the region. Since April 2024, China has been implementing similar structures in disputed areas, with these movements coinciding with a significant internal political crisis in South Korea, which many analysts believe China is exploiting as a window of opportunity. It's worth noting that Chinese activities are not limited to the Yellow Sea and the South China Sea, with the country having a long history of similar disputes in other maritime areas, including with Japan. These patterns indicate a deliberate strategy by Beijing to establish territorial precedents and gain leverage in future negotiations. The Yellow Sea holds a critical position on the East Asian geopolitical map. Beyond being a strategic route for maritime trade, it's also an area very rich in natural resources. Therefore, for China, consolidating control over this region means increasing its economic and military influence. The Asian Institute for Political Studies pointed out that, in addition to construction, China has conducted military exercises in the area, signaling its intentions to establish effective control over the region, thus not only worrying neighboring countries, but also South Korea's Western allies, notably the United States, which maintains a strong military presence in the country. A crucial aspect to consider is the domino effect. If China can solidify its presence in the Yellow Sea without significant resistance, this could encourage similar moves in other disputed areas, directly challenging the rule-based international order and affecting many other countries in the region, including Japan. For South Korea, this situation represents a complex test of diplomacy and strategy. The South Korean government faces severe internal political difficulties following the ousting of former President Lee Suk-yeol, which greatly limits its response capability. Furthermore, there's concern that an aggressive reaction might lead to military escalation, something Seoul wants to avoid at all costs. There's also the issue of international cooperation. South Korea will need to work closely with its allies, especially the United States, to create a unified front to counter Chinese ambitions without compromising regional stability. This dispute in the Yellow Sea is more than a bilateral conflict between China and South Korea. It's a microcosm of a much larger phenomenon, the transformation of the global order. China is clearly committed to writing the rules of the game, challenging Western hegemony and consolidating its position as a superpower. For South Korea and its allies, the central question is how to respond to this rise without compromising peace and security in the region, illustrating well how territorial disputes can have ramifications far beyond the immediate borders of the countries involved. And if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates.